Hey everyone, welcome back to another update. Today we're catching up on the whirlwind from January 30th to February 4th, a stretch that saw President Trump's aggressive immigration agenda hit serious headwinds, a partial government shutdown come and go, and early signs of cracks in the GOP coalition. Let's break it down. The dominant story across these days was the fallout from the massive ICE Operation Metro Surge in Minneapolis. What started as a high profile crackdown on criminal illegal immigrants spiraled into controversy after multiple incidents, including fatal shootings of U.S. citizens by federal agents, sparked widespread protests, arrests of journalists covering demonstrations, and sharp criticism, even from Republicans. By January 30th, President Trump was already signaling adjustments. He denied plans to fully pull back agents, but acknowledged the optics were bad. Border Czar Tom Homan and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem faced intense pressure as polls showed growing disapproval of ICE tactics, even among some GOP voters. The real turning point came on February 4th when Homan announced DHS would immediately withdraw 700 personnel from Minnesota, leaving about 2,000 on the ground. The White House touted milestones like removing over 4,000 criminal illegals from Minnesota streets, but critics called it a clear retreat under public and political pressure. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey called for a nationwide end to the ICE siege, and protests spread beyond Minnesota. Republicans showed early fractures, some officials publicly objecting to the spiraling situation, and surveys indicated a sizable and growing number of GOP voters disapproved of the hardline approach. Trump himself seemed to listen to allies pushing for changes on the ground, sparking backlash from the hard right flank. It was a classic case of ambition meeting reality, with midterms looming and swing voters watching. Tied directly to the immigration drama was the budget battle. Funding for most of the federal government was set to lapse on January 30th, with DHS at the center of contention. On the 30th, Senate Democrats in the White House struck a deal: fund most agencies through September 30th, but give DHS only a short-term extension, initially 2 weeks, later adjusted. Democrats demanded restrictions on ICE operations, things like requiring warrants in sensitive cases, unmasking agents, and better local coordination to address overreach concerns. The House passed the broader package, but a partial shutdown kicked in briefly over the weekend into early February as negotiations dragged. President Trump signed the final bill on February 3rd, ending the lapse and restoring funding for most agencies via a $1.2 trillion package. DHS, however, only got a stopgap through mid-February, setting up another high-stakes negotiation round. Democrats hailed it as leverage. The separation of DHS funding showed public anger was forcing concessions. Republicans, including Senate Majority Leader John Thune, admitted talks weren't close yet. The White House resisted major reforms, but the episode highlighted how the Minneapolis incidents reshaped the fiscal fight. Let's switch to executive actions, election moves, and foreign policy flexes. President Trump stayed active on the executive front during this time frame. On January 30th, he signed orders, including one celebrating American greatness with American motor racing, and another addressing threats from the Cuban regime, declaring a national emergency and setting up tariffs on countries providing oil to Cuba to counter its malign influence. Election integrity remained a flashpoint, with Trump continuing to push for stronger voter ID and suggesting Republicans might need to take over or nationalize elections in key areas to prevent fraud, comments that alarmed Democrats and raised alarms about midterms. Allies floated ideas like ICE presence at polls. On foreign policy, the administration highlighted Venezuela operations, with Trump claiming success via mysterious tech like the discombobulator weapon. Meanwhile, the clock ticked toward February 5th's expiration of the New START Treaty, the last major U.S.-Russia nuclear arms control pact. Experts debated extensions or new deals, with warnings that the world was entering a more dangerous era without limits on deployed warheads. Trump called for a new, improved agreement, but showed no rush. Now it's time for the noteworthy tidbits, which are brought to you today by Big Fork Brands. Let me tell you about them quick. Sometimes I get on a roll cleaning or gardening, and I need a boost but don't have time for a meal. Big Fork Brand's pork jerky is the perfect choice to keep my momentum, offering high-protein snacks for on-the-go energy boosts. Not only do they offer pork jerky, but they also make pork sticks, bacon sausage, bacon hot dogs, and burger and hot dog sauces. Products come in a variety of delicious flavors, including Thai green curry and maple and brown sugar for the meat options, and gangster and Chicago fire for the sauces. I personally think the original flavor of the pork jerky hits just right after tackling a big chore. It's a little salty and very flavorful. My discount code gives you 20% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit bigforkbrands.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. All right, let's get back to the tidbits. President Trump announced that he nominated Kevin Warsh to be the chairman of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System, replacing Jerome Powell. Trump said that Christopher Waller, Rick Reeder, and others interviewed and would have been outstanding, ensuring that there may be other opportunities for them. And he also mentioned that many speculated Kevin Hassett, the director of the National Economic Council, would be nominated for this position, but he's been doing outstanding work in his current position, so Trump wanted to keep him where he is. Ryan Wesley Routh was sentenced to life plus 84 months for the attempted assassination of Trump in 2025, closing one chapter on security threats. Democrats flipped a Texas state Senate seat and picked up a congressional seat in special elections, narrowing the GOP House majority. The top Democrat on House oversight warned they'd seek Trump's testimony in the Epstein probe if they regain control. It's been exposed that Representative Ilhan Omar's husband's investment firm, which skyrocketed to a net worth of $30 million, has no clients and zero records of money management. The pair may be in some hot water with fraud allegations, as it now looks as though both the investment firm and Ilhan's winery never existed. Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison will be testifying before the House Oversight Committee on March 4th regarding the rampant fraud in their state. But if Walz plans to stick with his whole fraud happens everywhere line, he'll be having a rough time at the hearing. Former Colorado State Senator Sonia Lewis was convicted of fraud for forging documents during an ethics investigation into her treatment of staff. Senator Mike Lee exposed the leader of the U.S. African Development Foundation pleaded guilty to corruption, but the Senate voted to give it millions of dollars. The FBI's raid of Fulton County, Georgia's 2020 election ballots was given probable cause by a judge, so they can be investigated without obstruction. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. pointed out that solving addiction recovery is something President Trump is passionate about, partly because his brother Fred's life was upended by addiction, and Kennedy himself was a heroin addict for 14 years and has been in recovery for about 43. That's the political recap from January 30th to February 4th. The immigration push showed early limits, the funding fight bought time but set up more drama, and bigger questions, like nuclear arms control and election security, kept simmering. What do you make of Trump's first real course correction? Hit me up on X or Instagram at Shades of Jade Pod. If this breakdown helped, subscribe, drop a review, and share it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.